Hello my dears, it's Katie and I'm here today to bring you another sample segment. As you already know, I did all of my contemporary samples last month, or all the ones that were out last month, and I had you all vote in a Twitter poll as to which one I should do next. I didn't tell you that this was the project that I was doing, but all of you chose for me to do historical fiction next. So that is what I'll be focusing on for this time. So as like last time, I will be reading my sample and then giving you my general thoughts afterwards, and then doing a kind of mini wrap up at the end, letting you know which ones I've decided to keep and which ones I've decided to get rid of. So I'm really excited to do this because it's perfect weather outside for historical fiction, because it's actually surprisingly cool here for August. And so let's just get started. I ended up finishing Outlander a little while ago, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. For those of you who have kind of been living under a rock and don't know what Outlander is, it follows our main protagonist Claire as she and her husband are on their second honeymoon after the end of World War II in Scotland. Claire goes to these kind of standing stones, and she gets transported back to the 1700s in the middle of a war between the Brits and the Scots, and things kind of go from there. And at its core, this is a historical romance, or at least that's how I'm classifying it. But so far, I really like the characters and how they're fleshed out generally. I don't like Frank, but we don't have to worry about him because I don't think we see him for the rest of this book, so that's great. I do like pretty much everyone else we've met so far, though. They're all really interesting and, as I said, kind of fleshed out. I, of course, love the setting. All the research that went into writing the book and everything is just spectacular. It really immerses you and grabs you, and it's just something that I love. The plot is intriguing, but it doesn't seem to be super plot heavy. It's kind of hard to explain. Like, a lot of people I know have classified this as a plot-centric book versus a character-centric book, but based off of everything I've read so far, I'm kind of seeing it in the opposite way. I see it as more of a character-centric book than a plot-centric book, but at the same time, like, there is a good, solid split of both of them, because the characters need to move the plot, but the plot also moves the characters, so it's kind of complicated. But yeah, so far the plot is really interesting. The thing that I am not liking very much is the writing. It feels very info dumpy, like it just, here is everything you ever want to know about everything right now, and then it may or may not be relevant later. So I mean, I personally could see that this book could have done with maybe a tad bit more editing, but also just the way the plot flows. There's just something about the pacing in particular of the book that isn't working, and then also just kind of how the puzzle is coming together. It just, like, within a scene, all of a sudden it just ends and you're somewhere else, and I'm just like, wait, what? And it wasn't that I was lost or confused, it was just that it was very jarring and would often take me out of the story rather than make me want to keep going. So it's like, while the characters and the setting were particularly engaging, the writing really kind of detracted from my enjoyment of the book a little bit. And for that reason alone, I don't know if it's something I want to continue. Like, even sometimes the dialogue was a bit rushed, and just certain parts of the book just felt rushed and just kind of uncomfortable to read about. And yes, I do know that there are some difficult topics that are coming in the book. I'm well aware of it. I saw the first season of the show. I do know enough about the plot to know kind of what's coming and how it's all gonna work out and everything. This kind of seems like it could be one of those cases where the TV show / movie is better than the books. I don't know. We'll see. I may end up continuing. I'm not sure if it gets picked for like a book club or something that I'm participating in, because that has the potential for that happening. I'll probably read it for that, but if it's just left up to my own devices, I'm not sure. I'm definitely on the fence, and I need to sit with it a little longer, ultimately, before I make any kind of decision. So I just finished The Clan of the Cave Bear a little while ago, and it's another one that I'm just not quite sure how I'm feeling about. For those of you who don't know what it's about, it is about a young girl named Ayla whose parents have died, and she lost her entire clan, and so she's kind of on her own in the wilderness. And this other clan stumbles upon her after she's been injured and is starving and has just basically collapsed. They don't know whether she's alive or not. And then they end up taking her in to their clan, and things kind of go from there. It takes place in prehistoric times. It's with the Neanderthals and another type of prehistoric human, because there were different types depending on the region you were from, kind of a thing. And one of the things I really do love about it is the setting. I don't think I've ever read a book that takes place in prehistoric times. That's absolutely fascinating, and there should definitely be more books with that setting. That said, there are just some things about this specific book that wasn't quite 100% working for me. The writing and pacing being the main thing. I've heard that it gets better as the book goes on, but it starts off with a major pacing problem. Not even that it's just too slow, but the writing is very descriptive and it's just describing absolutely everything. So it's kind of like a weird form of an info dump, even though it's really not at the same time. It's really kind of hard to explain. As for the characters, I'm intrigued by them, but I am not compelled to love or hate any of them at this point. It's almost too early to have an opinion about them, but I'm intrigued enough about them that they're really interesting, and that there's a lot to them. There's also not much of a plot so far, except for what I've already described to you. They find Ayla and they take her into her tribe, and that's kind of the gist. So, as I said, a bit of a slower start, but not really an issue there. It's more just the pacing and the style of writing that's really inhibiting my enjoyment of this book. Unsure as to whether I am going to continue with Clan of the Cave Bear, but I am intrigued by it, and there's something that just the idea of the setting of the book is really interesting, and I don't know. It's hard for me to say whether it's one I want to truly continue or not. Because I do really think, like, I know it's a really well-loved book. I know some people out there who didn't like it. I know some people out there who loved it. And I know some people who were kind of in the middle about it. And I'm, as of at this point, in the middle about it. So I'm probably just going to do a little bit of digging and then make a decision. But as of right now, I'm really just majorly unsure of what I want to do. I finished Shadow of the Wind, and that's another one that I'm not quite sure how I feel about. It is my favorite of the samples that I've read so far, but that doesn't mean anything. So basically what this is about is it's a historical mystery / historical romance novel that follows a young boy named Daniel. I think it's like takes place throughout his life. His father takes him to this special bookshop or library. Reads this book, it completely changes his life. He becomes obsessed with knowing more about the author and reading more of his works, only to discover that there aren't any more. And so it's just kind of him figuring out why there aren't any more and more about the author's life. It takes place in Spain, I believe, and it's really interesting from a historical standpoint, but it takes a turn in a weird way that I'm not sure I like. So The writing is absolutely lovely, beautiful. The pacing is pretty well done so far. The plot is intriguing. It has to be for a mystery, and I just really like the plot. The setting is great. The only thing I'm not so sure I like are the characters. I haven't connected to anybody, and they're doing weird things with the characters, like Daniel falls in love with every woman he encounters, and I'm just not about that life. Like, ugh, if there's one theme I've noticed in the 3 books that I've read so far, it's just that the treatment of women and the objectification of women is just so overpowering and it's exhausting. But like, if Daniel didn't deal with these women, he would actually be really interesting, and I might want to know more about his life. His father just kind of seems to be there, and I like the side characters quite a bit. So I mean, I'm torn because I do really like the book overall, or what I've read of the book so far, and part of me wants to keep going, but another part of me is like, is this going to be the entirety of the book? Because I'm not sure I want to do that. So, as per usual, I am going to do a little bit more digging before I ultimately decide what I'm going to do. I finished Labyrinth, which is the first book in the Languedoc trilogy, and so far I'm actually really quite enjoying it. It's a combination of historical fiction and kind of a mystery thriller-ish book. And while there are certain things that I'm not a huge fan of, my likes definitely outweigh the dislikes on this one. So basically what it is it's 2 different timelines. One that takes place in present day, which is 2005, and the second that takes place in, I think it's 1203, in France. So both of these take place in France in just different time periods. So the first character that we follow in current day, her name is Alice, and then when we go back in 1203, we also follow a character with a name that sounds like Alice, but I'm not sure how to exactly say, because French is not my strongest language. And it's all about these people called the Languedocs, or as we've come to know them, the Cathars. And so it's a medieval based setting in part, and then it's an archaeological dig site in the other timeline. And I don't know, I'm really loving the overall story. I mean, if there's anything I don't like, it's the writing. The writing can be a little bit cringy to read at times. I'm like, 1, people never say this, and 2, why are you describing this thing this way? So I mean, there are a few writing things that I am just not liking and kind of pull me out a little bit. But overall, I really do like the book. The plot is interesting, and I don't feel like I know what's going to happen, even though I know the historical time period well enough. So, I mean, that's refreshing because I always like being surprised and not being able to guess a plot 100% of the time. I really do like the setting. I definitely prefer the 1203 timeline to the 2005 timeline, just for a whole lot of reasons. And it doesn't flip back and forth constantly. So that's kind of nice. It's not like, one chapter, one chapter, one chapter. It's still like a narrative. So it's like, oh, hey, we're spending this time here, and then we'll go back over here. Because I think it's split into different parts, and then within the parts they have subchapters. So I think that's how they're going to do it. So part 1 was primarily in the 2005 timeline, and then part 2 is now in the 1203 timeline. So I really like that. I really like how it's structured. I like the mystery aspect of it. It's really interesting. I like the Alice character back in 1203 a lot more than the one in current day. I actually really don't like her. She does really stupid things in a not endearing way. And I'm kind of glad I'm not purely reading her storyline. Otherwise, I probably would not continue with this. And there's just, I don't know, just the way that current day is being written is just not my jam. So I kind of wish it was only purely in the 1203 timeline, because just the research and the way that everything is being portrayed is really immersive, and it makes you feel like you're there. You're walking the streets, you're getting the smells, you're experiencing what that character experiences, and I really like that. But Alice back in 2005, I could care less about. Like, I don't care. So it's really interesting, and as I said, generally overall really like it. I was not sure how I was feeling about it when I started it, but then once I got into it a bit more, I was like, wait, I'm actually really liking this, and I am definitely going to continue this one, and I'm really looking forward to it. So I read The Mistress of Art and Death, and unfortunately, I wasn't a fan. This book is a medieval historical fiction / mystery thriller novel, and the premise sounds great. It's really interesting based on the blurb. It's like, all these children are being murdered, nobody knows who's doing it and why it's happening. And then this woman doctor comes in with a team of a bunch of different people, and they are basically trying to figure out what's happening. And it sounds great and it sounds interesting, but it's not great. I really didn't like the writing. The style was just not for me. Just the way things were being explained, written, just the overall storytelling method, not my thing. I kept falling asleep. I was really bored. I glossed over a lot of the text. I just wasn't connecting with anything. So that reason alone would be enough to make me not want to continue. However, there were other things I did not like. I didn't like the characters. I felt that they were either token characters that were just kind of placed there. It just really rubbed me the wrong way. And then they also just felt like caricatures of what they could have been. They weren't fleshed out, they weren't explained very well. It was just they were there and things were happening. And I just didn't connect to any of them. And the main character, who was the woman doctor, was just very cold and rational, and just kind of came off as just not a very pleasant person to interact with, and I just, no. Plus, there was a lot of misogyny thrown around, and I mean, yes, there was a lot of stuff given the time period that would be a thing, like certain types of racism or anti-Semitism, misogyny, all of that definitely present. Fine, historical time period, but it was kind of almost over the top and just not done well. So I didn't like the characters. The plot was not quite holding my interest. I mean, you'd think, a mystery plot would be really interesting. I really didn't care. I was reading it, and I was like, yeah, okay, mystery, whatever, that's cool, good setup. But then, I don't know, it wasn't going anywhere. And nothing was really going the way I wanted it to. Just the way things were being described and everything that was going on, it just was not working for me. The only thing that was decent was the setting. But that only goes so far, because I mean, it is a medieval setting, but at the same time, it felt a lot like modern day people being plopped into a medieval setting, so it just didn't feel realistic, and it didn't feel like it should have felt. So I got really annoyed, I got really irritated with it, and this is one that I did decide to look at some reviews for, to kind of see if other people were feeling the same way, and it seems like a lot of people felt similarly to me. And I also read about some things that happened later, and I'm like, no, we're not gonna do that. So, if you can't tell, I'm not continuing this one. It was not a good time. I didn't enjoy my experience reading even the little bit of it that I had already read. And as much as I wanted to like it, because this is one of those books where it's like, I'm gonna like this one, it's gonna be great. Unfortunately, that was not the case, and I'm severely disappointed by it. I just finished 10,000 Doors of January a little while ago, and I actually, surprisingly, really enjoyed it. This was one of those books where I wasn't sure if I was going to enjoy it or not because of the magical realism slash fabulism elements, but I'm actually very pleasantly surprised by the fact that I actually really did enjoy it. This follows our main protagonist, January, as she kind of goes through her life. And she discovers all of these different doors that lead to different places, and kind of what happens to her as she discovers these doors and kind of how they impacted her life throughout. This does take place in the early 1900s, so at the turn of the century, and so that adds another interesting element to it. And I don't know, I'm really enjoying it. I love the setting. I love how immersive it is. I love how descriptive the writing is, how beautiful it is. The plot is intriguing. It's very slow, but at the same time, it's so immersive and so easy to read that it doesn't feel slow. January as a character is also absolutely fascinating. I love following her and her life and her adventures. I hate some of the side characters, but I don't think you're supposed to like them. And I don't know, I'm really enjoying what I've read so far, and I'm definitely going to be continuing at some point, and I'm really looking forward to it. Well, I finished Kindred a little while ago, and I absolutely loved it. This book follows our main protagonist, who is from 1976 Los Angeles, so post-civil rights movement, and all of a sudden she starts getting transported back to the antebellum South, and she doesn't know why and doesn't know what's going on or anything, and then she finds out that she is being transported back time for a specific reason, and she encounters the same people over and over again, and I just really love it. I've always kind of had a soft spot for historical time travel novels, especially if the person gets a chance to immerse themselves in that time period, and that's definitely what's happening here. The writing is really easy to follow. It's really lyrical. It's really engaging. It's really immersive. It makes you want to know what's going to be happening, despite a lot of those things being absolutely terrible things. The plot is really interesting, being transported back and forth between these two different time periods, and what happens in those time periods is very horrifying, but I think it's really important for all of us to learn about. The characters are so interesting, and I want to know more about them. I want to know what's happening to them and everything that they're going through. It's just so gripping, and I want to know more. And then finally, the setting is just so well done. Just everything about this book is incredible, phenomenal, and I love every second of it. And I'm definitely looking forward to continuing it. Finished The Pirate Captain, and I really enjoyed it. Not gonna lie, it took me a minute to settle into the book and the world and everything, because it uses a lot of nautical and pirate terms, and it's nice because the author has a glossary on her website, and I didn't necessarily need it because I am familiar with a lot of the terminology, but it took me a while to settle into that because I'd been away from it for a little while. So if you are going to read it going in, know that it does have a lot of heavy pirate / nautical jargon in it. And that kind of goes to the writing. The writing is really easy. It's really easy flowing, but because of the jargon and everything, it does sometimes take a little bit of a minute or two to settle in. The setting is in the Caribbean, pirate ships, and I don't know. I'm a fan of piracy age stuff. It's just my jam. Despite a lot of the difficult content that can come along with that period, I absolutely love it. So the setting is very fun, it's very immersive, and it's definitely one of those books that you're gonna want to read on the beach, or like listening to like waves, or like nautical sounds in the background, because it will just add an extra layer to the atmosphere. And then the plot, so far it's intriguing. I am interested in the little plot that we've gotten so far, which isn't too much, but it is a fun time. And then last are the characters. And I really love our main protagonist, Kate. She's very interesting, very layered. You think she's one thing at the beginning, and then you start finding out a little bit more about her, and you're like, oh, wait, you are not what I thought. Cool. Love that for me. I love the pirate crew. They're kind of hilarious, despite being, ruthless, awful. Not a generally great time, because, age of piracy, there's a lot of stuff going on. They're just, I don't know, I found myself laughing and being like, yeah, okay, that's very typical. And if any of you have seen like the Pirates of the Caribbean, it has a similar vibe to it in certain respects. I'm just a fan all around. So I'm definitely going to be continuing this book, but instead of adding it to my normal TBR, I think I'm going to add it to my travel TBR, because this is just going to be one of those books where if I ever go back to like the tropics somewhere, this is going to be a book or a series, because I think it's a series I'm going to want to pick up, because I want that vibe. I want that extra experience of reading a pirate book in the Caribbean or in a warm tropical place, either on or near a beach. It's what I need in my life. To put it out there, this is definitely one of those book candy books in a lot of ways, because it's not the best thing ever, but it is enjoyable to me and brings me a certain kind of joy that I just crave, especially when I'm on a vacation. So now it's time to recap everything and let you know which books of the 8 that I've read I'm going to be keeping and which ones I'm not going to be continuing. There also might be some in-between ones, but I will talk to you about those in a second. So I read 8 historical fiction samples, and of those 8, I am for sure keeping 4 of them, and I'm for sure getting rid of 2 of them, and then there are 2 that are going to be middle of the road. So starting off with the 2 that I'm not going to be keeping, they are the Mistress of Art and Death and Shadow of the Wind. For Mistress of Art and Death, I just didn't really like anything about it. It just wasn't holding my interest. It wasn't written very well. I hated the main character, and I just, after reading a little bit more about it, it just decided it was not for me. And honestly, I'm very disappointed in that one, because I was expecting to love it. And then the second one is the Shadow of the Wind. I sort of didn't hate it, but it wasn't going in a direction that I was liking. And then I looked up some reviews and found out that there was some tropes and some plot devices that were thrown in there that I'm just like really not a fan of. So ultimately I decided not to continue that one. Now the 2 that I'm kind of in a weird limbo position with are Outlander and The Clan of the Cave Bear. And the reason I'm not making a decision on these either way is, one, Outlander is a weird one for me. So I didn't like the writing style, and I don't know, just there was something about it that wasn't working for me. I'm planning on going back and watching the show at some point, so I might be more interested in that. I just kind of decided that this isn't a book that I would read on my own, but I might be reading it with my college friends book club. So if we do actually end up reading that one there, I will read it for that, but on my own, I probably won't. So Night of the Cave Bear, I'm having complicated feelings for that one. I didn't love it, but at the same time, I am intrigued by it. I would also read this one if I was reading with other people. If I was doing it as a buddy read or part of a book club or something, I would probably consider picking it up. But as for reading it on my own, I'm not so sure at this point that's something that I want to do. So I'm trying to figure out how I want to handle those, because they're not exactly DNFs, but they're not exactly like, yeah, I want to 100% read these. So I'm trying to decide if I should create another shelf for them or what I should do with them, because they are they're anomalies in this experiment. And the 4 that I'm for sure going to be keeping are Labyrinth, The 10,000 Doors of January, Kindred, and The Pirate Captain, Chronicles of a Legend. So I'm so excited to continue on with those. So for instance, Labyrinth is just, it's my jam, 100% my thing. Labyrinth, yes, in every possible way. I love that. I love the dual timeline aspect. I love just the characters. Well, I'm not a huge fan of the character from modern day, but maybe she'll grow on me. I don't know, but I love like the past timeline. It's just really, really great so far from what I've read. So I'm really excited to get to that one. The 10,000 Doors of January was like a huge surprise to me. I ended up really enjoying it, and I can't wait to continue on with it. And then Kindred is another one that I definitely want to continue. I was just so captivated, and it's so quick moving too. Definitely looking forward to continuing that one. And then the last one is The Pirate Captain, which is just, it's another one of those kind of like a guilty pleasure-ish books, but I am not going to be putting it in my normal TBR. It's going to go into my travel TBR, because it's just going to be one of those books that I want to read when I'm on vacation. It's just that kind of a book. And ever since I read that book, it's put me in the mindset of like, hey, I want to go back to the Caribbean sometime soon, but that's not going to happen. And it's also making me want to pick up writing a story that I thought I was not going to write from like a couple of years ago. So that's where we're at on that. So yeah, keeping those 4, and I'm really excited to get to them at some point in the future. Those are all the samples that I read. Just to recap, in case you were counting at home, I have kept 4 of them. I have 2 that are in this like weird limbo spot, and I have 2 that I've officially removed, not going to continue. So let me know down below, have you read any of these? And if you have, are there any that you're particularly excited for me to pick up sooner rather than later? Let me know. I'd love to talk to you about all of them. But other than that, you all know the drill. I have all of my social media links down below in the description. And I hope you're all doing well amidst the chaos. And I will catch you later in another video for you again soon. Bye!